Dave Punch again from the Institute of Disney Photography. We're going to try to take over where we left off yesterday with the same shot that we were starting to edit yesterday. So we're in the develop module, and I showed you a quick breakdown of exposure, highlights, shadows, whites and blacks, and how they're adjusted in the histogram. Exposure is pretty much mid-tones. If you ever, and it doesn't matter if you're using Lightroom or a phone app or whatever, basically when you're editing photos, it's going to break it down into highlights, shadows, midtones, lights and darks and midtones. So if you can kind of get an idea of how to adjust those, your highlights are those blown skies, your shadows are those darker areas. If you can kind of get an idea of how that works, you can do this in almost any program. We just happen to be using Lightroom because it's a standard. So I talked a little bit about presets, but I didn't really get into them. Like I said, I like presets. Some people don't. I make my own as needed. Some people don't. I have different presets over here for noise reduction. You can, the noise reduction at 400 at ISO 400. You can do the same thing on this side under noise reduction. So if I click here, you're going to see noise reduction jumped up to 20 and 50 on detail. If I drop that back down, you're going to see it again. So I'm just clicking a preset, and all it's doing is changing the luminance on the noise reduction. That's all a preset is. It's just you could take this entire setting, everything that we've done here, and make it a preset. If you wanted to apply it to underexposed images like the one that we started with. And there are presets for everything. There's, different styles, faded film styles. You've seen all these, just like filters, in on cell phones or whatever. It's pretty much what all these things do. Some of them are a little heavy-handed. These are the ones that Matt Cooper made for his daytime and nighttime stuff. These might work a little better if my original photo wasn't so underexposed. But you can see what it does to those blue skies. And then he has some night settings. Those are included in that IDP preset group. These are some that I made, the ones that start with DP, the ones that start with MC from Matt Cooper, and this is Sean Spansel. Sean has his original pop settings are in there. And all I'm doing is passing over them to kind of give you a preview of what each one does. Some work great for portraits. Some work great for landscapes. Like I have one called Disney Face Characters. If I showed you that on I don't know if I have one here. Not really. If I showed you that on a face character, you'd see that it smooths the skin and it brightens up their face. It makes them a little dewy. But that's what the presets are for. And like I said, there's tons of them out there. There's free ones. There's some that cost money. These are some that I made, user presets. I have one called Be Gentle. All it does is just make slight changes to highlights and shadows. Disney parades for overexposed and underexposed. I like to shoot parades, so if I find myself using the same settings for a couple of different things, I'll make a preset for that. Denoising skin. This was a homecoming shoot I did. The lighting didn't change much. I shot a bunch of kids for homecoming, so I created a preset for that so that I could apply it to all of the photos in that settings. In the thing, same thing for this This was a high school headshots thing that I did, using the same lighting setups. The lighting didn't really change much, so I could use that preset for every image in that set. I shot my kids in school theater, and I knew what the colors were typically in that theater. So I have theater dark, theater mid, theater normal, at different color temperatures, 33 Kelvin, 3300 Kelvin, and 2400 Kelvin. Just depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting something similar, make a preset for it. So the next question was, okay, we've done everything we like. Maybe we want to go a little crazy and say, man, I really want to, bump those blues up in the sky. I want to get those greens looking cool. You can see all the changes that I'm making here. And you get it to where you want, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to export this. I want to make a JPEG. I want to share it with my friends. Right click on it and export. Now, on here, you'll see I have a couple of different export user presets. 5K wide with my logo. This is for 5K monitors if I want to share it wide. Cat's Meow Digital Sign is where I work. I do images for some of our digital signage. We have a location in Las Vegas, so I have one with that logo. Facebook 2048 Lite and Facebook 2048 No Logo. These are the ones that I usually use for my Disney stuff. This is saved for Facebook at 2048 pixels wide with my watermark lightly faded. And I'll show you that in just a second. And this is the same settings with no watermark. So if I go up to export, and I'll show you how these are. So you'll see this is my Facebook 2048 wide. I save it in a folder called Facebook Ready. Used to put it in a subfolder called Web Ready, but not there anymore. But once I export something, it's going to dump it into that hard drive in a folder called Facebook Ready. And the file settings are JPEG, quality is high, resize to fit, long edge, 2048 pixels. That is what Facebook maxes out at before they start crushing and compressing your photos. Resolution is 72 pixels per inch or dots per inch. 72 is screen resolution. 300 is typically for print resolution. So if I'm outputting something for screen, like for Facebook, I use 72 DPI or 72 PPI and at 2048 pixels on the long edge. Other options are height and width and short and edge and whatever. But that's my output. Sharpen for screen because that's what it's going to be seen on. It's not really made for print. And then watermarking. So under watermarks, I have a lot of different ones. You can make logos for anything that you're doing. I do stuff for Autism Speaks. So I had a shoot where I put the little puzzle piece in the corner of the image. This is work stuff. My depunched logo in dark and light and faded and different ways in the corner and smaller and whatever. Motley on Halloween. This was a Motley on Winter. These were school dances that I shot. Or I made a little logo for the Halloween dance or for the winter dance. And as I exported them, just dropped that watermark on them and it already had branding. So the other thing is like, hey, how do we make a watermark? So if you hit edit watermark, you'll see that that's my little logo faded to about 40%. You can import an image, put it wherever you want. This is where you want it to land. If you want it dead centered, I usually put it in a corner over here, and how much you want to inset it by however much. And save that save that as a setting. Your logo, however you wanted. You know, if I didn't want it faded, I'd push it all the way. But save it so that you can find it. Then, like I said, you can save this whole setting as a user preset for an export. In this case, this is my Facebook with a light logo. This is Facebook with no logo. These are print ready. Print ready goes into a folder called print ready. It is at 300 dpi and no resizing. I want it full size, as big as I can get it, at 300 dpi, sharpened for glossy paper. I have television resolution, 1280 pixels by 72 dpi, or pixels per inch. This is for high def, but not 4K. And it goes into a folder called Photos for Video. That's how you create user presets, and you can add and remove them for anything, for any setting that you're doing. So, with all that out of the way, I right-click, I export, I choose Facebook 2048 Lite, boom, and it exports a JPEG. So, under here, under Facebook Ready, and this was, it's still exporting the file, 06 2017, Disney 06 2017, 1773. This is the file that we just made. And notice it made a JPEG, and it's only 3 megapixels, versus the original file, which, let's see how big it is. Show in Finder. Sorry, I'm on a Mac, guys. So the original file is 33 megabytes. Okay, that's the raw image. What it saved it to was a 3 meg JPEG. So it's thrown away 90% of the data and said, this is all you really need. You know, it went from 30 to 3. And it has all the information in it, what we call the metadata. All that gets saved. If you save it to Flickr or something else, people can see what camera you used, what lens you used, what your aperture setting was, that whole thing. But there's our image. All right. Hope this helps anyone. If you have questions, feel free. I'm going to keep making some of these, and we'll just kind of go through the basics. All right. Thanks.